She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't even ask me why. All my mother said was, "A backyard? Really, Julia? That's not a wedding. That's a potluck for poor people." And then she hung up. Just like that, I knew she wouldn't be coming. Not because she was ill. Not because she had a scheduling conflict. And certainly not because of any family emergency. She wouldn't be coming because in her eyes my wedding wasn't worthy. It wasn't extravagant enough. It didn't scream wealth or performance. It didn't give her a spotlight to step into. I sat outside for a long time after that call on the edge of our porch, old wood digging into the backs of my legs. Winter air sliced through my sweatshirt, but I barely felt it. I just held the phone in my hand, like maybe it might ring again. Maybe she'd call back and laugh, say she was joking. Maybe she'd say, "I didn't mean it, honey. I'll be there." But silence came instead. Thick. Heavy. Permanent. Malik stepped outside eventually, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He just handed me a mug and sat beside me, letting the steam drift between us like a curtain of quiet understanding. "She said no," I whispered. He nodded once. "Because it's in the backyard," I added, forcing a bitter little laugh. "Because there wouldn't be a ballroom. No chandeliers. No tiered cakes or plated beef with wine pairings. No custom cocktail names to impress the in-laws. What we had didn't fit her fantasy. Because when my mother pictured her daughter's wedding, she saw herself at the center of it. She didn't care about the lanterns I spent 6 months wiring by hand, tiny LED lights inside recycled glass bottles. She never asked how we transformed our humble backyard into a glowing, flower-laced haven. She didn't ask why we limited it to 25 guests. She didn't ask what it meant to us to speak our vows where we built our life, not in a rented hall but on soil we'd dug with our own hands. Weeks earlier, I remember her scoffing, "Please tell me you're not doing potluck style." She didn't wait for an answer. She never did. It's strange, isn't it? How some people reduce a sacred moment to nothing more than social optics. My mother didn't ask about the man I was marrying. She asked what people would wear, what the photos would look like, what others would say. It wasn't about love. It was about presentation. Still, I sent her a real invitation. Not a text. Not an email. An embossed, lavender-scented card tied with silk thread. She never RSVP'd. The only message she sent after receiving it? "Looks like something a homeschooled kid made." Funny thing, she'd forgotten I was homeschooled for 3 years. At her request. What do you do when the woman who raised you tells you, without shouting, without slamming doors, that your life simply doesn't measure up? What do you do when your mother silently declares your most sacred day isn't even worth an Uber ride? You grieve. Then you keep going. You hang the lights. You press the dress. You rewrite your vows. And you record everything because you know no one else will. The truth is, my place in my mother's world was always negotiable. Conditional. I was the second daughter. The quiet one. The one who wore hand-me-downs and was absent in half the family photos. At Rachel's wedding, the grand affair Mom still brags about to every book club and brunch table, I wasn't a bridesmaid. I wasn't even a guest. I was the staff. Clipboard in hand. Walkie-talkie in my ear. Making sure the caterers didn't run out of crab cakes and the violinist didn't start too soon. I remember my shoes, cheap clearance flats that shredded my heels by the first dance. I remember Rachel's dress, hand-beaded silk, more expensive than my college education. I also remember Mom adjusting the train like she was crowning royalty. Tears in her eyes. "You'll get your turn," she whispered when I tried to step into a photo. But my turn never came. What I got was a checklist. Be useful. Stay out of the shot. Don't ruin the aesthetic. The only picture of me from that entire weekend? A blurry side angle where I'm wiping the cake table. Someone once tagged me in it and captioned it, "The help." I laughed. I didn't correct them. By then, I already knew my place. So when I told Mom this time would be different. Small. Intimate. No speeches. No bridal party. Just vows and fresh bread under an open sky. She blinked. Small. She sounded like I'd said criminal. That's disappointing, Julia. Don't you want something people will remember? I didn't want people's memories. I wanted mine. Music under trees. Plates passed hand to hand. Laughter without microphones. A wedding that didn't need permission. But her face told me, clear as daylight, that I'd failed. That I wasn't just planning a wedding she couldn't accept. I was a daughter she couldn't be proud of. Rachel called a week later. I thought she was checking in. She wasn't. Mom's worried, she said. She thinks you're sabotaging your own wedding. She says you're just afraid of being the center of attention. I didn't argue. I said, thanks for calling. Then I hung up. They didn't get it. They never did. This wasn't sabotage. This was a reclamation. Claire came up behind me quietly and adjusted one of the straps on my dress. You look like yourself, she said softly. And I did. For the first time in a long time, I felt like myself. Not edited, not muted, not framed to fit someone else's expectations, just fully wholly me. At exactly 4:12 p.m., our ceremony began. No music. No orchestrated drama. Just the sound of birds in the trees, the wind rustling through branches, and the creak of the garden gate as our guests arrived, not with fanfare but with reverence. It felt like they were stepping not just into a wedding, but into a memory being written in real time. Malik stood at the end of our little garden path, our makeshift aisle, in a navy blue suit that wrinkled at the elbows and a crooked smile that nearly undid me. His hands trembled the moment he saw me. Mine did too. There was no officiant. No script. No staged performance. We spoke only to each other. Not to the crowd. Not to the past. Not to the future. Just to each other. I don't remember the exact words, but I remember what they felt like. Like stillness after years of noise. Like being heard, truly heard, by someone who wasn't just waiting for their turn to talk. When we kissed, the guests didn't clap politely. They cheered like they knew. Like they felt it too. Dinner was shared around long wooden tables, no servers, no courses plated like art exhibits. Just enamel pots brimming with warmth, love, and food we'd made with our own hands. Plates passed hand to hand. Laughter bouncing off the ivy-lined fences. Someone humming along to Van Morrison playing through a borrowed Bluetooth speaker. When night fell, the lights blinked on, those tiny bulbs I'd wired for weeks, lighting up the yard like fireflies had taken up residence in every tree. At one point, Claire leaned over and whispered, "This looks like a film set." But it didn't. It looked like home. Exactly as we intended. And even as I laughed, barefoot in the grass, swirling with Malik beneath the paper lanterns, I knew the people who chose not to come would never truly see this. Not the light. Not the feeling. Not the life built into every moment. They wouldn't see the way Malik looked at me during our first dance, like there was no one else in the world. They wouldn't hear the toasts that came from hearts, not index cards. They wouldn't taste the lavender lemonade, the fig cake, or smell the rosemary smoke rising from the grill. They'd only ever see the photos detached too late. And by then, the truth would already be living without them. We hadn't planned to post anything online. Our friend Devon, an indie filmmaker, not a wedding videographer, offered to capture the day as a gift. And she filmed it like a whisper. No drone shots. No slow-motion edits. No Instagram filters. Just us. As we were. Setting tables. Fixing hair. Holding hands under string lights. 2 weeks later, she sent us a short film, 90 seconds. No narration. No titles. Just a soft piano piece laid over fragments of something sacred. It began with Malik wiping his palms nervously on his pants. Then me tying a ribbon around a jar of wildflowers. The final shot was the two of us dancing barefoot, paper lanterns above us swaying like shy stars. I cried the first time I watched it. Then I cried the second time. And again the third, alone in our living room. When I called Malik in to watch it, he didn't say anything for a long time. When it ended, he took a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep. "She made it feel ancient," he said quietly. I nodded. "Do you think it's petty if I post it?" I asked. He smiled softly, knowingly. Sometimes petty is just the truth finally told. So I posted it. No hashtag. No lengthy caption. Just October 8th home. Love. And then I put my phone down and went to sleep. By morning, it had over 20,000 views. By noon, it crossed 50. By evening, an editor from a small design magazine reached out. "Is this your wedding? Can we feature it?" I stared at the message in disbelief. I hadn't expected any of this. Within a week, the story was everywhere. 2 online magazines. A viral roundup titled, "The Most Beautiful Backyard Wedding You've Ever Seen." But I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel smug. I felt seen. Maybe for the first time, not by people who had pre-scripted a version of me, but by those who were simply willing to see what was actually there. Then the call started. Rachel left a voicemail. "Wow. Why didn't you tell us it was going to look like that?" A text from my aunt. "That wedding video is all over my feed. I had no idea it was yours. It's gorgeous." And finally, my mother. Not a call. Just a single-line text. "Is this the wedding I wasn't invited to?" I stared at it. Technically, she had been invited. She just never answered. The next day, another message. "You made us look terrible, Julia. People are asking why we weren't there. You could have warned us." Warned them? I read the message again. And again. I couldn't decide which part upset her more, that the wedding happened without her, or that it was beautiful without her. Because this wasn't about her being hurt. This was about her losing control of the narrative. I didn't reply. Not at first. But 3 days later, after Malik watched the film again, this time glass of wine in hand, tears just barely visible, he looked at me and said, "You should let her see it. Not because she deserves it, but because she clearly doesn't understand what she missed." So I sent her a message. "If you want to understand what really happened, come to the studio on Friday at 3. Watch the full footage. Nothing edited." She replied 2 hours later. "Fine." She arrived late, 10 minutes, of course. Wearing pearls. Of course. She walked into the small screening room like she was evaluating a silent auction. Polite. Cold. Removed. No hug. No small talk. I didn't offer either. Devon had set the room up, just 2 chairs, 1 monitor, and silence. I hit play. For the first 5 minutes, Mom sat with her arms folded. I waited for a scoff. A sigh. A snarky laugh. None came. The audio was raw, no music, no filters. Just footsteps on gravel, soft glass clinks, a faint breeze, and my voice, nervous cracking, saying vows. Then Malik's voice. Shaky. Stumbling. "You make me feel like I came home." At minute 12, she shifted. At minute 18, she blinked hard. And at minute 20, as we danced under those glowing paper lanterns, she exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. When it ended, I froze the frame. A still shot of empty chairs, candle stubs, a quiet yard. She was silent. Then finally she muttered. "It looked expensive." I waited. She cleared her throat. "You didn't say it would be like that." I turned toward her, steady. Would it have mattered? She opened her mouth. Then closed it. "I invited you," I said. "You declined. You didn't make it clear." "I wasn't auditioning for your approval, Mom." I was getting married. She looked away. You made us look like we didn't care. Did you? She flinched barely, a tremble at the corner of her mouth. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it. Thanks for coming. She hesitated, half stood, sat again. I didn't know it would be beautiful, she whispered. That's the point, I replied. You didn't care to find out. She left without hugging me. I didn't expect her to, but as the door clicked shut behind her, something in me shifted. Not peace, not forgiveness, just clarity.